Hello and welcome back to Andy's FPL Apprentice. I've got a transfer tips video for you ahead of Gameweek 7. If you enjoyed this style of video, then please give it a like, let me know in the comments, and I'll be releasing content all throughout the season, so please consider subscribing to the channel. So first up, we've got to start with Mohamed Salah. He's been transferred out by 378,000 managers so far this game week. Not been terrible so far this season, but certainly not the Mohamed Salah that we have come to expect. He's had 3 assists so far and 2 goals, but he's blanked in 3 out of the 6 game weeks. Also, his underlying numbers are down, particularly in the Everton game that's just gone. He played really wide. I think with Núñez not playing the last few games, we've seen Liverpool play similar to how they played last season, but I think they will play more with Núñez as a central striker, meaning that Salah and Diaz aren't getting in the box as much as they were last season. So that's certainly a concern. Also, you only really justify Salah on his price point because you're captaining him a lot. If you look at kind of points per million, even last season, he's not really worth it. But of course, when you're doubling those points half the time, because of captaincy, it makes him well worth it. I think the argument this year is that a lot of people are just leaving the captain's armband on Haaland. And I certainly see that in the short term. I think City have got a tougher fixture this week, and I'm still going to captain Haaland, I would have thought. I think he's just in such good form that I'm not worried about the fact that they're playing Spurs, whereas Liverpool have got Wolves, which is the easier fixture. But we did this last season. Salah started playing so well that it was a question of, are we just perma-captaining Salah now? And of course, towards the end of the season, the returns dropped off, and anyone who was a bit riskier and started captaining Son were the people that really gain rank at the end of the year. I think it's easy to say Haaland's a permanent captain for the next few game weeks, but I'm really only looking for the next couple of game weeks. As soon as we start seeing, it doesn't even have to be Salah, but another premium looking like they can compete with Haaland's numbers, I think the idea of permanent captaincy has gone out the window. And the main reason that I can't quite see the argument of getting rid of Salah is I don't know who you replace him with. I think if you look at the premiums from this season, Son isn't really an option for anyone to bring in. He's been poor so far. Kevin De Bruyne has less points than Salah so far this season. I never really like him as an option anyway. I think he is just consistent, but he never gets the big hauls that you want in your captain option. And I think that the best premium to replace him with is probably Harry Kane. But the attacking positions are just looking so competitive at the minute. I think we'll get on to other ones, but Toney, Mitrovic, Jesus, if you're going to have 2 premium strikers, then you can only have one of those 3 to go alongside them. So I can certainly see why Salah is being sold, but for me, he'll remain in my team really until I see a better option to replace him with. Next up, we've got Edouard Perišić, who's been sold by just over 250,000 managers. Obviously didn't start, came off the bench for a whole 6 minutes, and he is a high rotation risk player. I think when he starts, we've seen he played 75 minutes against Wolves in game week 3, 73 minutes against Nottingham Forest, just 190 minutes so far this season. He's a high rotation risk, and also it's kind of the worst of that as well because he's always likely to come off the bench if he doesn't start, so I think he'll be there for a lot of one-pointers. I brought him to my team because I thought he was worth it on an attacking point of view. He takes a lot of free kicks, corners for Tottenham when he's on the pitch. But I think with the Champions League starting, I think he's more likely to play in those games and maybe be rotated in the league more. So I can certainly see the argument for selling him. Also, Tottenham's fixtures just don't look fantastic coming up. Man City away is this week. Leicester's obviously a very targetable fixture for them, but then Arsenal and Brighton, two strong defences afterwards. You can see some clean sheet points in those last couple of games, but the attacking returns might be quite hard. Finally, there's just better value in defence, I think, at the moment. Brighton and Newcastle's defence have looked very solid this year. We saw a lot of defenders priced at 4.5 million at the start of the season that are just looking really good value. The Arsenal defence as well. And I think if you're not seeing big attacking returns out of Perišić, then he's not worth it for a million more than those guys. Currently 5.6 million. He's owned by 26% of managers, and I can see that dropping quite considerably in the next couple of game weeks. He's in my team, and he's probably a sell for me. We've got Mendy. Now, I certainly agree that the Chelsea defence has been poor this season. This morning, got the news that Tuchel's been sacked. Don't know how much that's going to affect it, but I think I've said before in other videos. I think it's really hard when you're bringing in so many new players to integrate them straight away. They've got often, 4 out of the 5 defenders are new signings for them. And yeah, I think there's just a lack of cohesion there. And Mendy overperformed really his stats last year, and he's not doing that. We've seen a couple of mistakes this season already, and I think he's somebody who's unlikely to get a lot of save points. So the cheaper goalkeepers like Raya and Sanchez, even though they may get less clean sheets, they can kind of make that up out of the save points, which we're not seeing from Mendy. So I can see the argument for getting rid of him. That said, I would only be doing it if I was wildcarding. I think a lot of managers are looking at wildcard in the next few weeks. I really don't think it's worth using a transfer at the moment to get rid of Mendy. But if I was wildcarding, then I certainly would be. But anyone who's got, absolutely nothing that they want to change in their team and 2 transfers, you're in an incredibly lucky situation at the moment that you can afford to make a transfer for Mendy out. It seems like a bit of a luxury for me, so I would be keeping him if I had him, but I would certainly be getting rid of him on wildcard. Next up, and we're looking at those players that have been transferred in, and top of the list is Marcus Rashford. 736,000 managers transferring him. That's a huge number. Obviously, after his 18-point haul in Gameweek 6, he's now owned by 15% of managers. I can certainly see why. I think the main thing is the price point. He's only 6.5 million. I think at the start of the season I said he was on my watch list, but I wanted to see how United played, and obviously 4 wins in 4. I can certainly see why he's been brought in for that. That said, I think he's a high rotation risk. We've seen him start every game this season, but I think Anthony being thrown straight into the first team shows how much United rate him. I think he'll be starting most weeks. I think Jadon Sancho is the most likely player on the left. And Marcus Rashford's best position for me is still on that left wing. I think Cristiano Ronaldo will start getting starts. You've also got Martial now back in fitness and an option. So I can see Rashford being in and out of the team. That said, at 6.5 million, it may still potentially be worth it. I think if he doesn't start, we're likely to see him off the bench. I do have a bit of a query of whether we now trust the United defence. Whether we trust the United attack. I think the Arsenal game was kind of the best example of how United play at their best, where they kind of soaked up pressure and then hit Arsenal on the break with real pace and kind of flexibility amongst the forwards. I don't think they've shown that they can the team to really break down a defence or sort of dominate the ball. yet this season. A lot of the wins have been kind of closer games where United haven't carved out a huge amount of chances. And even in the Arsenal game, United didn't create a huge amount aside from the goals that they scored in that. So I think Rashford is a good option because of the price, but I certainly don't expect that he's going to start. Like, I wouldn't consider him as a captain option or anything like that at the moment. I think it's just the price point for me. And if I didn't own Martinelli, I'd still think that Martinelli was a better pick at that price point. But if Rashford keeps doing what he's doing, then yeah, great option to bring in. Secondly, I've got Kieran Trippier. I just think Kieran Trippier looks like a really great option at the moment. He's part of a Newcastle defence that's got 3 clean sheets already this season in 6 games. And he hasn't actually had that many attacking returns, despite the fact that, he takes a huge amount of set pieces for Newcastle. And I think we'll start seeing better returns from Trippier because I think he'll start getting more attacking points, getting those assists and potentially those goals. And Newcastle have great fixtures coming up as well. I think the West Ham away game, you'd argue is a little tough, but West Ham's attack hasn't looked great so far this season. Then Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, Brentford at home, all decent fixtures. Brentford have been great this season, but I don't think Brentford at home is a match that Newcastle should be scared about. Kieran Trippier very high on my watch list, may potentially bring him in this week. I'm considering wildcarding in a couple of weeks, and Kieran Trippier will almost certainly be in my wildcard draft if I haven't brought him in before then. I think you can make an argument for doubling up on the Newcastle defence as well at the moment, potentially with Pope in goal, because if you can get clean sheet, obviously that's great, but I think Kieran Trippier, the potential attacking returns means that you can take the risk there, knowing that Trippier might get you an assist even if he doesn't keep a clean sheet. And then finally, we've got Ivan Toney. Again, you can see why he's been brought in because he scored a hat-trick this game week for a huge 17-point haul. Don't think he'll do that every week, but certainly it looks like a strong option going forward. He's on penalties, obviously scored a direct free kick as well. And the Brentford attack just looks really good. In fact, Brentford just look really good this season. One of the few predictions that I've got right so far this season is that I said Brentford wouldn't suffer the kind of second season syndrome, and they certainly haven't. And Ivan Toney, I think, is now being talked about as potentially getting an England place for the World Cup squad as a backup to Harry Kane. And yeah, I think he's definitely in the mix. The only thing that I would say that will put me off Toney, and I spoke about it earlier, is the competition for the 3 striking spots at the moment. I think I wouldn't consider bringing in Harry Kane just because it eats up a spot. Haaland's obviously, I think, in almost everybody's team. Jesus has been in everybody's team from the start, and I think Toney looks a great option as the 3rd striker alongside them. But Mitrovic is very high on my watch list as well. I think Fulham's fixtures look really good in a couple of weeks' time, which is around when I'm looking at wildcarding, which, if I'm going to bring in Mitrovic, leaves it a straight shootout really between Toney and Jesus for the final spot. So yeah, great option. I think although he won't score a hat-trick every week, he'll keep chipping in with those points. But just be careful going forward because I think there's other strikers who you may want to bring in as well. So that's it for the transfer tips video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like. Let me know in the comments what you think of any of the most transferred in and transferred out players. And if you're enjoying the videos, then please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out and we appreciate it. we'll be back hopefully tomorrow with our team selection video for Game Week 7. So we'll see you there.